Welcome, everybody, to episode 166 of WordPress Weekly for Wednesday, October 15th, 2014. Inching closer and closer to that episode 200. We'll get there eventually. I'm joined by Marcus Couch. And Marcus, how you doing this week? Another week, another WordPress bunch of news gone by.
Tons of news. Like you and others out there, I'm chomping at the bit and waiting for WordCamp San Francisco to come around. I think we're
A week
less than
away.
a week away, man. That's going to be something.
Next Friday, I'll be in San Francisco.
Me too. I don't know if the city can handle both of us in one place and one time, but we'll find out.
We'll find out. So let's get started with the previous week's stories. Let's start off with webdesign.com has essentially become iThemes training. Now, I know Corey Miller had, well, the story behind this is actually pretty interesting. Back in, I think it was the summer of 2009, Corey Miller had, I almost want to say acquired, but he actually developed a partnership with a company called Digimedia, and he was the person who was behind Digimedia worked in the same location as Corey Miller when they were doing iThemes. So he made this strategic partnership, and this Digimedia actually has a lot of really neat domains, such as webdesign.com. They also have one called fantasyfootball.com. So they established this relationship, and under the iThemes brand, it was part of iThemes, but it was never, if you looked at it on paper, it didn't look like it was part of iThemes. The webdesign.com was sort of this training facility of different web design techniques and sort of just this whole training moniker for iThemes. Well, after several years now, they've decided to move everything from the webdesign.com domain. It's now going to be hosted under the iThemes umbrella, which is why it's going to be called iThemes Training. And that, to me, says that the partnership with Digimedia is over or couldn't be renewed. I'm guessing that's why things have been moved under the iThemes umbrella. But then again, it also makes sense to have everything under the iThemes umbrella because I don't think of iThemes as a company that does training. They do themes, they do plugins, and they do a few other things. Now that it's under the iThemes umbrella as iThemes Training, it'll take a little while, but now I'll be able to actually remember, oh yeah, iThemes does training too. And Marcus, I don't know, have you heard of a similar story where, actually in the comments, Chris Wallace tells a story about he did something similar where he partnered with somebody that had a really, really good domain. They didn't have anything to do with the business or didn't know what to do with it, so you partner with him because you set up a business and e-commerce site dealing with whatever that domain is. You build up a lot of value, but then, boy, that's risky business because you don't know, depending on your partnership level or how well you know this person you're in business with, they could just yank the domain, or essentially when you're putting all this work and effort into a domain, it's the domain that's getting all the value, not all the other work. I mean, that's risky business, do you think?
Absolutely. I mean, I'm reminded of this story I just read about in the news real quick of somebody who built their dream house in Orlando, Florida, and the contractors actually built it on the wrong lot. They built it on the lot next door. And so the people that own the lot next door, guess what? They have a free house because it's on their property.
Oh.
So the same thing happens with domain partnerships like this. You're basically building your brand on somebody else's lot, and they can take it away from you at any time. So I don't condone doing these types of arrangements or partnerships, but it sounds to me like they found a way out of it, at least. And I think the iThemes brand is a lot stronger than any other moniker that they've gone by in the past anyway.
So if you're a webdesign.com customer, nothing much changes. You'll be able to use the same credentials to log into iThemes Training. And they have over 300 hours of training and activities and content over there. So that's pretty cool. I'm glad they were able to maintain and save all that and not have the rug pulled out from under them, which is always a possibility in some of these partnership deals.
Yeah, and I'd like to see a lot more iThemes internal stuff being trained as well. That would be great.
That also would be pretty neat. So the troubleshooting handbook for new WordPress support forum volunteers is live. This is a project that a couple volunteers have been working on, mostly spearheaded by James Huff, who has been a member of the support team for a few years now. And the book is, some people have mistaken this to be just a general troubleshooting WordPress handbook, like these are some things you could do to troubleshoot WordPress, when in fact it's mostly a guide for those that want to volunteer their time and help other people on the WordPress.org support forum. So it gives you information about how the forum works, the proper use of the mod look tag, privacy issues, the no replies view, and in fact, one of the coolest things about this handbook is there's a section on there. Even though your dog thinks it's a really cool handbook, so, but it's got the dog's approval. But section 2 has this section called Break Fix Lessons, and there's several different lessons on here. And what it does is it teaches you, so it gives you a problem, and then it walks you through the process of troubleshooting that issue, so that if you come across it on the support forums, you'll know how to deal with it and how to provide the right answers to provide good support. So that's just a really neat resource. It's available now. We'll have links to that in the show notes. And it looks like at some point in the future, the support handbook is going to be merged in with the troubleshooting handbook. So then you'll just have one really cool resource for troubleshooting resource, all there for free, that anybody can access to.
And hopefully you can navigate it, so you don't need a handbook to figure out what those two handbooks do.
Yeah, yes, that would be kind of crazy. So the reason why they're going to merge the handbooks, well, one of the reasons is that something you just hit on. The support handbook actually has a nice style to it. It's styled. It has a table of contents. The layout of the content is nice. It's easy to read. The troubleshooting handbook, not so much. So when they merge the troubleshooting handbook into the support handbook, it will inherit all the styles, and it'll just look nice right off the bat. That'll be one less thing they have to worry about.
Good.
So,
I can't wait for the whole thing to get compiled.
Killing two birds with one stone. So let's see. There's a pretty cool service. Well, it's actually not even a service, but more like a resource. It's called WP Tally. And Marcus, you being in the plugins, just your take on WP Tally, which is a tool that displays the total download count for plugins attached to a WordPress.org username.
Well, didn't I just do that the other day with Lester Gamer Chans in our interview? I mean, I kind of figured that out too. So it's just addition. Yay! Hooray for this plugin. But
it does it all for you.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's nice. All right. What are the applications for this? Where are they going to put this? On their own sites, profiles, things like that?
Well, here's the thing. It has an API, and they have a couple of different things that they're going to be working on. Initially, when I tested it out, we didn't have an ability to sort through the results, such as most downloads or alphabetical order. They've since added sorting, and they're working on maybe creating a widget that people could add or embed this information into a text widget so that you could show it on their websites. So there's a couple of different things like that. I mean, it's not a groundbreaking thing, but I think it is cool that as a plugin developer, hey, let's say you've got 60 plugins, which some plugin authors do. Instead of going to each one and adding them all up, you can just put your name in here, and it will even show you how many downloads per plugin, and just give you the total. So I don't know. It's just it's a convenience factor, is what it is.
I'd like to see more of a trending thing. So if we're going to take this kind of API data, why don't we get a trend of the top 5 plugins downloaded today, downloaded this week, downloaded this month, downloaded this year?
Yeah, that would be neat. And even to sort of expound on that a little further is, let's say you have a plugin that has 26,000 downloads. Wouldn't it be neat if you could see over time, since the plugin's inception, all the different spikes that the plugins had in terms of downloads, and maybe correlate that with a version? I think the WordPress.org repo does actually show download stats like that, but I'm not sure how far back they go or and I think they could use a little bit of work in terms of presentation.
Well, we can all dream. Maybe we'll talk to Matt about that next week.
So if you are a plugin author, head over to wptally.com, plug in your WordPress.org username, and bask in the total download count, which could be high, could be low. It all depends. So speaking of plugins, I have a very special day planned for this Friday, October 17th. I've considered October 17th Rate and Review a WordPress Plugin Day. What do you think of that?
Yes, about time.
All right, yeah, I got the crowd involved there. So the purpose of this day is, in the day-to-day activities, I look at my own experience here. I use, we were talking about this the other day, I use about 26 different plugins, and I've used practically the same ones over the past 5 or 6 years of the Tavern's existence on the Tavern site. And every now and then I got to exchange them, but for the most part they're the same. And a couple of times over the course of those 6 years I've donated some money, but I've never really sat down and rated them or gave them a review or even go down to the box that says does it work or not with my version of WordPress. So adding into the compatibility information. So what I've done is I said, you know what? Sometimes people just need an excuse. They need a push, maybe to allocate the time needed to rate and review a plugin. And as you rate and review plugins, you're actually contributing to WordPress, which we talked about last week, where people will be able to use that information, and that might make or break their decision on whether to use a particular plugin. So the special day, the whole thing is, you now have a special day, a special time to set aside, and hopefully hundreds of others have picked up on it and said, you know what, this is neat. I need to just stop what I'm doing, review these plugins, let them know what I really think, because I think for the most part, the way the WordPress backend is set up with the plugins page, you download them, you install them, and then the next time you go back to that page, to that plugins page on WordPress.org, it's probably because you need support, and that's probably the worst time that you want to be writing a review for a plugin. So what do you think, Marcus? I mean, you're really big into plugins.
Yes.
The whole idea of setting a day aside to just rate and review your favorite ones, and in that time period, it's more likely that those reviews will probably be positive, which we all know. Negative reviews are far more easier to get. People are easily more negative about things than they are positive.
Well, that's absolutely true. WordPress users, and especially heavy plugin users, need to make it a part of their natural cycle and their weekly routine, as it were, is to go to WordPress.org, check out some of the new plugins, and while you're there, take a look at some of the existing plugins that you use, and leave them a review. Tell them how it's going with the plugin so far, if you've run into any hiccups or any difficulties, or if there's a success story in using the plugin over something that you used to use. Share that stuff, because there are exponential amounts of people that download a plugin versus review a plugin. A plugin may be downloaded 1 million times, yet only have 50 reviews. It's stunning. Apps in a smartphone world would never have this kind of low participation, I guess you could say. So it's important to do that, because it encourages the developers. Every time that I've left a review for somebody and given them the feedback as far as, look, it almost went as far as I needed it to go, but it was missing, Y and Z in the equation, and next thing you know, I get an email and it says, hey, I fixed that. Check out the new version. So what better way to get what you want program-wise than to just communicate and tell people what it is that the applications are good for?
Yeah, and I got to tell you, just all these plugin developers, I've seen where a couple of them get just a thank you, or hey, this really made my day, or this is awesome, you solved a problem I've been having. I've been looking for this plugin all my life, and I finally found it. Plugin authors love that stuff. That makes their day. Sometimes a great review like that, if you mean it, and don't do these fake reviews, but if you mean it, it has really helped you out. The plugin developers love that, and it could offset maybe the 5 or 6, bad day type reviews that they sometimes get.
Yeah, and maybe that's a developer that's having a bad day, and you might brighten their mood up a little bit.
Right, awesome. So remember, October 17th, I'm actually going to review all 26 plugins I use. I'm going to rate and review all of them. And
Nice.
so hopefully everybody out there will participate and leave us a comment. We'll link to the post in the show notes, so maybe you can comment and let us know how you participated in this day. So with that, 2015, that's what the new default theme's name is going to be called when it ships with WordPress 4.1. It has officially been added to the development version of WordPress, which those in the know call Trunk. So I actually downloaded it today, messed around with it, and pinpointed some things that I didn't like about it, but it's in the early going. I know that they're working on a lot of things. In particular, there's a left-hand sidebar. It's a two-column theme. There's a sidebar on the left and the contents on the right. And if you have a long enough sidebar, if you have too many widgets, this scroll bar appears between the content and the sidebar, and it's ugly, and it's not a good experience. In addition to being ugly, but they already have a ticket and are working on that. So between that and some of the other things I pinpointed, like I said, those things are just minor issues. Overall, it looks like a good theme, and I think my prediction is, even based on the feedback I've seen thus far, is that when WordPress 4.1 comes out, a lot of people will either switch to 2015 or they'll definitely use it versus the others that ship with WordPress as the default theme because it's clean, it's nice, it has great typography, and really, it's just a good-looking default theme.
Well, what's so cool about it? What's it do?
It does nothing. It does nothing but present your content in a great way out of the box.
Okay.
Which is what. And there's arguments. We've had this argument, but I don't want to. Eric Mann actually wrote a great post back in September, which harps on a lot of the points that we brought up several years ago when the topic of retiring Kubrick came up. We started discussing, hey, what would you like to see in a default theme? And a lot of people said, hey, we would like to see something that is a great example of WordPress coding standards. It shows off what WordPress can do and is a great foundation. Everything inside is documented. And to a point, some of that stuff has happened, but now we're seeing default themes that come out once every year, and I don't know. It's a small choir that we're preaching to, but now we have this sort of theme that goes back to WordPress's blogging roots, and I just think a lot more people will be able to use it as a starter theme versus like 2014, which is focused on a specific use case, such as magazines or content-heavy layouts. But other than that, there's really no, like you said, cool factor.
Yeah, I don't use stock themes at all. You say it's starter theme, but how long does the starter theme last? A month?
Well, if that, I mean, it's a nice theme to have until you can play around with it, or until you venture out, through the back end and start looking for all the free themes available. It's just a good start. Is really all
I
it
understand.
is.
I'd love for them to use the new theme platforms as sort of introductions of new technology that they're doing, even if it's got specific plugins that go along with it, or encapsulates the best of what's coming out in 4.1. That would be great to me. I don't see that from the themes that come out a lot. It just doesn't seem like they're taking advantage of all the technology like parallax and some of the other stuff that is already out there in abundance.
Oh yeah, and I see what you're saying. So that's sort of the part of showing off what WordPress can do in the theme, and they're not exactly doing that.
Not really, no.
Well, it is, parallax and all those other nifty cool things. Full screen videos for the background.
Right.
Well, they do have to cater to a huge audience of users, so maybe all that stuff, I don't know. But I see what you're saying. But we're
give
just
me something with a page builder in it, that I can insert some cool API data. Give me something like that.
Well, see, then you might be going out of scope to what a default theme should be in WordPress.
Okay.
But
all right.
but that's okay. We got plugins and everything else. So we're going to keep an eye on the development of 2015, and as WordPress 4.1 gets closer, we'll update you on the enhancements and maybe the cool stuff that's yet to come.
Yeah, yeah.
So last story here, but there's a new conference in the works catered specifically to WordPress developers. It's called LoopConf. Sort of like Prestige Conf, but it's LoopConf, sort of a play on the WordPress loop. So it's scheduled to take place May 7th through 8th, 2015 at Weston Lake in Las Vegas, Nevada. And, of course, the conference is dedicated to WordPress developers. It's going to be a 2-day event. So far, they have 6 speakers confirmed, with more on the way. So far, they include Joost de Valk, Jen Schiffer, John O'Nolan, Helen Husandi, and Andrew Nason, and Syed Balki. So the Loop conference is going to be a single-track conference where a bulk of the content will be between 30-minute sessions and 60-minute developer workshops. So what the conference does, it gives developers an opportunity to hang out with their peers and really dive deep into some of these advanced engineering and development topics.
Awesome, I'm going.
Are you going?
Yeah.
All right.
Unless it's like $1,000, how much is it?
So far, tickets are not on sale. They plan on selling between 600 to 700 tickets in 2 rounds. They will have an exclusive deal with the hotel for attendees to take advantage of. And if you can't make it, Marcus, if it's out of your price range, guess what? It'll be live streamed for free.
Oh, even better. No, I want to go because I like Saeed and I like the rest of the guys. That's a cool show.
You'll be in a developer-centric mindset and a lot of developer-centric sessions. So that sounds like it's right up your alley.
Yeah. I might even ask to speak at that and just preach to these guys as to what stupid things not to make.
Well, the call for speakers is active, so you have until November 4th to put in your application to speak. And if you do get a chance to speak, you get to attend the event for free and get free room and board. So there you go.
All right.
Little perk for the speakers. So keep an eye on that. It's called LoopConf, and we'll have a link to that in the show notes. So, Marcus, what do you say we bring on our special guest here? Why don't you introduce Frankie Jarret?
Oh, why don't I introduce? Boy, that's a switch. Okay. Well, Frankie is a web developer living in St. Joseph, Missouri, and has been designing and developing for the web since 2001. He currently works for X Team as head of WordPress products. His job is to strategize and oversee their commercial WordPress product initiatives. Please welcome to the show, Frankie Jarret.
Hey, wow, nice. Hey guys, how you doing?
Great.
Doing fantastic. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. It's exciting. Glad to be here.
So, it says strategize and oversee commercial product initiatives for X Team. Sort of give us a little more background in terms of what that job title means.
Yeah, sure. So, yeah, X Team, which is now XWP. We just rebranded actually 2 weeks ago and made that announcement at WordCamp Sydney. But yeah, we're a WordPress VIP partner. So I believe there are 10 other agencies that are VIP partners. And really what our focus had been for many years was doing enterprise client work. So building a lot of things for proprietary use on WordPress. Big publishers, news organizations, media and entertainment and television. That was our main focus there for a while. And so as a natural part of that, we were always developing cool products, but these products were only seen by the client. And so we had developed this great team, and we were building all these cool things, and we thought, well, there is a WordPress ecosystem here that we haven't ever actually built anything for. And so we started off small by open sourcing some of those plugins that we had developed for clients. And then we decided, we had an idea for a plugin, and we decided, why don't we try to go to market with some of these things? We had seen other people use this in their playbook. Other VIP partners have kind of done similar things. HumanMade has done it. 10up has done it. And so we thought, well, why don't we try doing that? And so Stream is our first commercial plugin, if you will. although there are still very free aspects to it, it would be, I guess, considered our first commercial plugin.
Okay. So describe the vision or idea that initially became the product known as Stream.
Oh, good question. I think it actually started in I could tell you the month. I think it was 2012, November or December. And we had a really high-profile client. They had a lot of publishers publishing on this site, or one publisher with many editors, and they had new content coming up all the time. And somewhere along the line, someone had removed a widget or something, and it was like a contest widget, and it was kind of really important for their business. It was like a business issue. And so they were really concerned about who
did this?
Yeah.
I want to know now.
Right.
I demand to know.
And it was actually, to be totally honest, it was less about who removed it and more about how long has this not been there, because this is a revenue situation. We need to know how long this has not been there, how many hours. So that's when a flag kind of went off in my brain, and I thought, man, it's remarkable that there's nothing. I can't find anything solid out there for WordPress that will audit trail the admin area. There's all these front end, analytics and really advanced things. Everyone wants to know how many users do I have reading my blog, but there's not a lot of really sophisticated ways to view your admin activity when you're dealing with huge numbers of people, editing content. And so that's where the idea kind of birthed. And I talked to our CEO at the time, Dave Rosen, about it. Talked to other people on the team, and we thought, well, let's try to, build a prototype. So we started building a prototype in December of 2013. So we sat on this, pipe dream idea just for a year, just thinking, oh man, maybe we should build something like that someday, So it took a while.
Oh, and Stream's pretty cool. I mean, you install it, and it shows you an audit trail. It's like activities. How deep down does it go? How fine-grained are the activities that are logged?
Yeah, that's probably why we even decided to build this ourselves, because there are some other plugins out there, and they're really cool plugins, and they will track some of the things that happens inside WordPress admin. But we really wanted something that was going to track everything, every single thing that could happen in WordPress core. We wanted to track, and then we wanted to have the capability to extend that even further and maybe add certain kinds of tracking for certain kinds of plugins that were doing certain things to the database. And so we really focus on tracking any event that makes a change to the database. So if you're clicking around in the admin and you're not actually making any changes, Stream isn't going to record anything. It starts recording things when you actually fire WordPress hooks, when things happen, when things go into the database, or things are changed or removed from the database. That's when Stream records activity and says, hey, this happened, and it gives you kind of a snapshot in a row, so you can see a summary of what happened, you can see who did it, what author role they have, the person who did it, and then it'll give you some categorical information, like what section within WordPress did this happen in, what specific action happened, was it an update or a create or a delete, and then it'll tell you things like IP address. So we try to be, the Stream record object, as we call it, is pretty, I think it's pretty detailed. We probably have some opportunities to make it even more detailed, which will be exciting.
Now, that's really cool. I mean, all that auditing, and maybe not a few weeks ago, maybe a few months ago, Marcus Couch and I, there's this project that is currently in development. Wasn't successful with the crowdfunding campaign, but it's called Version Press.
Oh yeah, right.
And it sounded like what Stream does, except you have the ability, it was the undo button for WordPress. You could undo any of the database changes that were logged. Have you heard about that project, and is that something you could see eventually maybe Stream incorporating, or you leave it to Version Press to see how it goes?
That's a really great question. Yeah, in the early phases of Stream, before Version Press, before I even knew about it, before I think they maybe even announced it, it had been brainstormed within our team. We have a brainstorming document where we just throw out wild ideas. And Weston Reuter, who's actually a WordPress core contributor with the customizer, he's on our team, and he actually had the idea for an undo feature, and we really considered it. I even wrote a little bit of a prototype interface for how it might look, rolling back history. Ultimately, we decided that we wanted to stay narrow with what we wanted Stream's purpose to be, and we decided that what WordPress does is it manages your content, and it does a good job of that. WordPress already has some things for revisioning, so it has revisions, for instance, for posts, and we kind of felt like, well, this almost seems like an area that WordPress core should be advancing in regards to content control, and we wanted Stream to really focus in on what's happening and when did it happen, almost like that audit trail, more than actually becoming part of your content management system, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes total sense. So you guys are satisfied with what you're doing, and by adding all that undo functionality, that would take you out of scope in terms of where you're heading.
Right. Yeah.
So Stream 2.0. Oh, go ahead, Marcus.
No, I was just gonna say, is there now? I'm very impressed with Stream in the sense of not only how it keeps track of these particular anomalies and logins and changes in content and things, but the fact that you can then go back, similar to how you filter posts and pages and things, and filter through events with specific users that are involved, so that you can really kind of granularly get down to even just an entire date. It also has RSS feeds and JSON attached to it, so that you can look externally to this. So it gets a lot deeper than even Frankie's talking about here on the show. But that's what impresses me the most, is its filtering capacity and the way that you can kind of disseminate the different data.
Well, if we're just recording a ton of data, I mean, really, what good is it? It's just
right.
The real value is how you're able to then view that data. And actually, Apple, when they just came out, I'm sorry, I've got to say that the Apple Watch is beautiful to me because of, I don't know if you guys have seen that cool thing where it shows you like your little health with the 3 rings.
Yeah.
I started getting really excited because I'm thinking, wow, this is great data, a device that keeps track of your health data, but it's how it shows you the data that's exciting. And I think that's what we really see Stream becoming, is something even more exciting than what it is, because right now it shows you a nice table. Like you said, Marcus, you can filter things, you can get down granular, but what if you could do some really cool stuff like setting milestones for your team? You could gamify, setting these achievements when Stream captures certain numbers of certain things. Really, the possibilities kind of become endless when you think about that, and that's what we're the most excited about with Stream, is not just the data, okay, here's a table with all your data, like a log, but how can we show this in a really cool way that now makes it more exciting and maybe even easier for me to manage my blog or my business's blog or my clients' blogs, because I have this tool at my disposal.
You know what that does? It puts you in a position where somebody says, "Can we do this?" and you say, "Plug-in material or plug-in territory."
Yeah.
So you can start telling people that.
Yeah.
So Stream 2.0, this is a huge change. It essentially morphed
Big
the
time
plugin into a service. Can you give us some insight into the process that led to this decision? Why going from just a plugin that sits on the install and on the server of a WordPress installation, now it turns into the service?
Yes, you're right. It was a big shift, and it was something that we internally, discussed really heavily. We launched Stream, early days back in December of 2013. We then went to WordCamp Austin. I believe that was end of April, and we launched our Stream extensions, which were going to do some cool things like notifications and reporting and other cool stuff. And then, based on a lot of the feedback we were receiving and what we started kind of looking around at some of the other audit plugins and what they did, there was something that was pretty clear, and that was there wasn't yet any solution that could totally scale, that was totally secure, and that could potentially have the ability to do really, really advanced processing on the data. Like I said before, you can have a bunch of data, but unless you can really visualize it and do something cool and meaningful with the information, then you're kind of, there's nothing for you to look forward to. And so that's what we decided that the service pivot, if you will, would really accomplish, is that it would solve the scalability problem, because now we're not using a WordPress database, which by the way is for content. I mean, people who use WordPress love it because it does content really, really good. You shouldn't be storing logs in a content database. It's not a wise decision. You can, but it's not a wise decision, because as soon as you start having scalability problems, when your logs get too big, you could potentially crash your site, which is where your content is, and now your users can't read your stuff, which is the point of your website. And so that's a huge concern. And the next one would be like security. There's a lot of sites that get hacked, and if your logs are on the same site that got hacked, then the intruder can just go in and delete the logs, so you don't even know that they did anything. And we knew that Stream, in its current state in the 1.0 cycle, was susceptible to all those things. It could show the data in a somewhat meaningful way. It was, just as secure as the website, really, and it was only as scalable as the MySQL database that the content was on. And so we knew we really have to pivot in order to accomplish these three things.
And one of the biggest points of contention from those that went through the upgrade process is the fact that the data is stored in the cloud, which you just mentioned the positives by doing that. But is there a way for customers to opt out of using the cloud, or could they choose which cloud to store their data in?
Yeah, I mean, with doing this shift in thinking for us of going to the cloud, there was definitely a lot of conversation within our own Stream team about how do we do this in a meaningful way that's going to help as many people as possible. We knew, though, that by doing this, we weren't going to be able to please all people in every situation, in every part of the world, at all times. And we knew that going in. We did, however, know deep in our heart that this is why we love open source, is because all of these past versions of Stream that we're using these local storage mechanisms, we're always going to be available to people to use. 2.0 was it's a major version change. It's now no longer a 1.0 cycle. We're in a 2.0, which means we're in a totally different ball game. And so we knew that going in. As far as where to store the data, that's something that we're still exploring. Some of our European friends have been talking to us about potential routes we could take, because we want to make sure we include them and what Stream can do now in the cloud. And some of them have concerns, depending on where they live, about where that data is. I know that the European Union and the United States and everybody have been in these data wars for a few years now, and it doesn't seem like there's a lot of. It seems like small businesses and people trying to help make these services end up getting kind of the brunt of having to figure out how do we get our friends in Europe to be able to use these things. But for the most part, we think that we're able to provide a good service for a pretty large majority of people, and we definitely need to. I think the biggest thing for us is figuring out how can we now take this Stream stack for maybe big enterprises or people who have policies that say we have to keep things on premise, and being able to take the Stream stack that we have in our cloud and actually provide that for people to be able to have their own stack. Because in my opinion, I think the opinion of any web professional, your logs should never really be in your content database. It's not a wise move. It's opened you up to lots of vulnerabilities and a lot of potential for your site to crash. And so I think that I would never really wholeheartedly recommend someone use their MySQL database to store their logs, but I can understand maybe why they would, and they should probably use the old version of Stream.
Well, I don't know about you, Marcus, but when people start talking about the stack or this stack or my stack, I think of pancakes. So I'm a little bit hungry right now. But Frankie, let me just ask you, it's Stream has this activity data. So if you make a change, and it happens, you save it in WordPress, it's saved. On the surface, in some perspective, I don't see that data as being really valuable. What can you really do with that data except know when this happened or when that happened? Is it data? Is it valuable data that you think a hacker would really want to have access to?
Maybe not a hacker. I think you're probably right in thinking that. Why would a hacker want to know when you updated your Hello World post? He probably doesn't care. But I think that it's useful when you are the person who is overseeing your site. Keeping that pulse on your site, especially if you have a lot of people that are doing updates on it. It's important to have a bird's eye view, a pulse on what happened today. I was talking to Marcus before the show, and we were kind of talking about that actual use case of if you have other people working on your site, how do you know, how many times they logged in or when they worked, so you can maybe see, oh, they usually work at this time, so maybe I could work, at a different time, so we are sure not to overlap with one another or cover more ground if you're a news organization. There's all kinds of benefits from having the data, but I think it's a different story for every site owner, and that's why I'm always excited when someone says, hey, I like Stream because of this, and it's almost like always a different story, and that makes me really excited because I think, wow, there's just no end to this. I can't think of every way that this data is helpful until someone tells me.
Yeah, I like to use it in a support scenario where somebody contacts me for support and says, I did this, this, and this, and then I go, no, according to Stream, you did this, this, and this, and that's why it's broke.
That's one use case. That's a popular one, yeah.
Yeah, in the case that I was referring to, it's really checking with outsource workers who may check in as a task or milestone being done on a project management system, yet the data doesn't correlate when you go to the WordPress Stream log and see that maybe they haven't really done the things that they've said that they've done otherwise. Now, also, on the flip side of this, for all of you out there that maybe are, handle the maintenance of websites for other clients or things like that, this plugin could also be used for you to kind of develop a log of your time that you've actually spent working on someone's WordPress site as well.
Yeah, you can kind of show the proof of the pudding. This is actually what has been going on. We haven't just been over here.
That's right.
Pretending to do things. You have, it's transparency with your clients in that scenario, and that's pretty cool.
Yeah, the two biggest things right now in dealing with any kind of online entity is transparency and accountability, and this plugin gives both.
Now, I heard you guys talk, if you don't mind me jumping in on something I heard during the news segment. You guys talked about stats on .org.
Yes.
And you were talking about,
yes.
I think, Marcus, didn't you say something about trending?
I'd love to see trending, yes. And is that something that you've got planned in Stream as well?
It's something that we're definitely is on the table right now. That I haven't actually really talked to anybody about this yet. But
there we go, Marcus. You're the first.
But
hey.
I heard you say that. And I thought, man, I'd love to tell these guys what we're thinking, just to get your guys' feedback. But we're, thinking of the history of WordPress, which WordPress has quite a history. And I'm definitely not trying to throw plugins under the bus. I am a plugin lover. I love, all kinds of plugins. I use all kinds of plugins, and I appreciate developers. But there have been some plugins that have come out with some bad news as far as major security vulnerabilities. So I'm thinking I think it was maybe last year or a year and a half ago, W3 Total Cache had a really nasty one where anyone could gain admin access to your site.
How about MailPoet? That's a recent one.
Or that one. There's several.
Take your pick.
That it may have happened to, and these are great plugins. I encourage people to check them out. But things happen, and wouldn't it be great, because if Stream is now this cloud service where there's a lot of information about who's deactivating and deleting plugins, if there was even more crowdsourcing information that was totally anonymous, obviously, just totally anonymous stats for the community that said, hey, you know, trending right now is that this plugin is being deactivated because it might give a site owner a tip off that, hey, maybe there's a problem going on with this plugin. I have that plugin, and I'm seeing that trending now is deactivating this plugin, or trending now is updating to the newest version of WooCommerce. And you can see, oh, you know, a lot of people are using that plugin, and it could actually be a way not only to alert people of potential problems with popular plugins, but also showcase those plugins that are getting a lot of attention and help them spread the message that, hey, you should check out our plugin too because we're trending.
When you talk about this stuff, I'm thinking of one of those sites where, you know, you see a map of the world, or there's a globe. You see ping, 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 and then it tells you like the little activity, and you can click on it to see what's going on. And then they have that activity of what's trending or what's been happening the most within the past hour, 6 hours during the day. Man, that's just, I might lose a lot of time just sitting on the website trying to see what everybody's doing.
Yeah, I mean, think if you're a plugin author, you know, we get down the road in the distant future when Stream is really able to provide a lot of meaningful, you know, data back to the WordPress community to show things that are happening, and you can, you know, you can actually see a map of people who have activated your plugin within the last 7 days and where in the world they are. And you know, obviously, this is all anonymous information, but it's really useful if we believe in things like community and being able to be transparent about and provide information about what kinds of ways people are using WordPress.
Now, obviously, it wouldn't cover WordPress globally, but it would just cover everyone that is using Stream.
That's right. It would be users of Stream, which, you know, we hope to be in a position, you know, in the coming months and years where we have a significant market share of WordPress.org installs, where that data, although it's only a partial representation of WordPress.org at large, it still represents a fair amount, so that those statistics are, you know, within a margin of error, you know, reliable and can be taken seriously.
I want something like that now, so I could set it up as my background. Just leave it on the website on a monitor, like I'm in an activity center.
Yeah.
Like, see what people are doing all over the world.
Yeah, a couple of years ago, Dig used to have this, the Dig Swarm.
Yeah, a lot of these, what do they call them? Status boards?
Something like that.
Right now, yeah.
So getting back to Stream and the updates, when I was doing a review of the new update, one of the first things I noticed, which shocked me, was seeing that I had to connect Stream to WordPress.com.
Yes.
WordPress.com ID, and the first thing I'm thinking of, what is this? What's the meaning of this? Have they struck a deal with WordPress.com? So explain why you needed ID, and will Stream work without that connection to WordPress.com?
Yeah, this was a very deliberate and important decision that we made for security. Was number one, and number two was convenience. So we all know that, you know, WordPress.com accounts, a lot of people have these accounts. So it's pretty convenient for those who already have them to not have to sign up for yet again another site. And we thought that, you know, thinking about the WordPress community in general, this is our only audience. This is who we made Stream for, was for the WordPress community. And when you think about all the people who have, you know, Gravatar accounts and, you know, use Jetpack and use PoleDaddy and use, you know, WordPress.com blogs and all these things, there's millions and millions of people. And so we knew if we're going to use an SSO approach, WordPress.com is hands down got the most reach into the people that we're trying to get using Stream. And for security, this was huge for us. There's a lot of WordPress companies that have been in the news over the last year or two that have had major stories about being hacked, and they have to send out messages and you know, big PR statements about how everyone needs to reset their passwords and how sorry we are and all these things. Yeah. And we're sorry we stored all your personal information and your passwords and your credit card information on our site, and it was all hacked. And we decided from day one, we're just not going to expose ourselves to that. We're going to use a single sign-on process with a third party, and we're essentially putting the burden of all that login infrastructure on WordPress.com. But WordPress.com makes it really easy because Jetpack, which actually powers our site, WordPress powers our site, and we're running Jetpack. We're using the SSO module that is
which means go sign on.
Yeah. So we just enabled that module, and we configured it a little bit. I worked with George Stefani a little bit at the day after we launched, and we found a bug together with it. But we really thought that was a great add-on for Jetpack, and so we decided to use it. And now people who also use two-factor authentication with WordPress.com can have that same protection with Stream. So we don't offer any way for people to create a Stream account or store their passwords or anything in our database. It's all handled externally.
Well, if you're going to go with a third party, WordPress.com, you picked a good one.
I mean, yeah, Facebook. We thought really long and hard about that one, and then we thought, okay, so we're already storing people's activity in the cloud. It's not people's content, by the way. It's just activity of when you updated a post. But Facebook is just like synonymous with like the big eye in the sky, and we were just like, you know what? It's just hands down the only one we're going to offer is WordPress.com.
Yeah, that's a good policy.
So with all the changes to Stream and the reliance on third-party services, I've seen several folks comment that they'll no longer be able to use it in an enterprise environment due to regulations or policies that are in place. Are you doing anything special to address these concerns about running Stream 2.0 in an enterprise environment?
Yeah, good question. Well, number one, they can keep using it because all the old versions are still available. They can keep using it just like they always have been. They can't use 2.0, but I think a lot of people thought, oh my gosh, this is never going to be the same again. I can't use Stream anymore, and that's just not true. I mean, it's all on GitHub. We're never going to take them down. It's open source. People can always have the ability and will always have the ability to fork our project and make it better if they think that they want to do that. It's open source, and that's what we believe in. So they can keep using Stream. They can keep using the old version. But yeah, I kind of alluded to it earlier, but we are working on a way, because we have a lot of enterprise clients ourselves. I mean, this is what our business is birthed out of that. We just started doing work for a really, really large news organization in Australia. And, enterprise is at the top of our list as far as making Stream compatible with it, and for our VIP customers on WordPress.com VIP. So we are definitely looking into how do we get the Stream stack to run on-premise for an enterprise organization, but we're not interested in exploring maintaining Stream's ability to use the WordPress database. It's just there's a lot of other tracking tools that use the WordPress database. People should definitely go check out those plugins that do things similar to Stream. We just don't think it's a smart idea to use a content database for logging. It limits you. It can create a lot of scalability and performance headaches, and then the security aspect just makes it not a serious thing. And we're really focused on trying to be as serious as we can. We realize some people will probably be upset by it, but maybe Stream's just not the solution for them, and that's okay. But we really we hope that they would consider the new things that we're doing, but we understand not everyone will.
Well, I think storing all of that stuff in the one database anyway is kind of like hoarding, isn't it? It's like putting everything in one place even though it shouldn't go there.
You can't keep it forever either. If you're really going to do that, I mean, the responsible thing to do is once you get to so many, hundred or thousands of records, you should stop, because you shouldn't be keeping logs that long in a database that's being pinged all the time by your users, because you could create a major problem. So the smart thing to do is keep maybe a 15 or 10, or maybe if you're a slow site, a 90-day retention on your logs. But I want to keep my logs forever. I want to go in and build a really cool report on how my blog has gotten to be used more and evolved over the years, and you can't do that if you're storing in a local database with MySQL. It's not built for that. It's not meant for that. You can't query anything meaningful out of it because it's too slow. It's just I want to keep stuff forever. I never delete an email. That's why I love Gmail. I never delete an email.
Just out of curiosity, When did you or the team realize that the road you were on was Stream and storing the records into the MySQL database, the same one that a WordPress site would use? At what point did you realize this road has a dead end and we just have to offload everything to a service?
Well, that's a really good question. The concept
because the way you explain it, it just seems like, well, if it wasn't Stream 2.0, maybe it was Stream 2.1 or Stream 2.2. It seems like this was an inevitable move.
Yeah, it kind of does. I mean, for sure, in our brainstorming documents, before we even launched Stream, this was written down in some form that it could be in the cloud. Now, as far as when we got to the point where we knew, there's definitely a shift that needs to take place, that was probably somewhere in March or April. Probably March, just before we went to Austin to announce our extensions. We had already started formulating plans and building a team around this idea of doing a 2.0 release in the next 6 months. And now we're at that point, and it's great, but we still think that the way Stream started was probably the best way to go, because it enabled us to keep things small, kept our user base small. We were able to test things really rapidly. We didn't have to worry about cloud infrastructure. We just did everything locally. We were able to fine-tune the way Stream tracks things and really make the plugin side of Stream really, really robust, how it tracks. And now Stream is all about, even though we're still, evolving the plugin, making it cooler, making useful data, Stream as a business is focused a lot on infrastructure, storing these records securely, quickly, scaling it. We had to scale really, really fast because the first week we launched, we had a ton of people signing up. We were approaching like 1 million records within the first 10 days. And it was like, wow, this is getting fast. And we had some infrastructure go down a couple times, and we're learning lessons. And so this is a new but exciting territory for us. And it's bigger than just WordPress now. This is about data handling and doing that appropriately, and we're pretty excited about it.
Now, are there any integration plans? Because you mentioned before enterprise level. Do you have any integration plans into things like Salesforce, Infusionsoft, stuff like that, as far as, or even as simple as Basecamp or Teamwork or some of those things that do project management, as far as being able to correlate that data, especially in Salesforce when there's account activity or user activity and things.
So you mean taking your Stream data and seeing it inside something else?
Sure. Yeah. Even in the sense of if you are somebody who is let's just say a developer, and you charge by the hour versus the project for maybe some maintenance every now and again, could I hook this into FreshBooks and correlate my time into a billable amount and send that right out?
That's a really cool idea. I like that idea.
Let's go in the brainstorming session.
Let me write this down. I mean, we definitely want to open up the API of Stream, because now we have all this data, and you can, like you said earlier, you can view some private feeds, so you can see XML or JSON, but we want to open it up eventually so that people can write third-party integrations and people can query directly our API and get those records back however they want. We have started experimenting a little bit. I've never told anybody this either, but since you asked, we did start writing a extension for Zendesk. The reason why is because we're basically talking with different WordPress hosting providers, because we think Stream would be really useful information during the troubleshooting process with support with your host.
Oh, yeah.
If they could see why they're in a ticket with you, what things you did recently, so they can get to the bottom of your problem faster. And then likewise, when they go into your site for you and maybe change a setting or do something, the customer can see exactly what that support team member did. And so that's one integration that we were working on internally to offer to WordPress hosting companies. But certainly there are a plethora of ideas, and the FreshBooks idea, that's a great idea. I think.
And the way you're describing it for support issues, that's just like, and that doesn't have to be major host providers either. That could just be anybody.
It could, yeah,
What's the
absolutely.
problem? Let me go in and take a look at your stream log and see what you guys have been doing here.
Yeah, absolutely. And Zendesk has a really cool API. We were able to build a very functional prototype very quickly, like within like a day and a half. Yeah.
All right. Well, there's tons of other things that you can integrate to. So yeah, for me, when I look at the data, it's just what is the target, what is the timestamp, who did it, and how long did it take.
Yeah,
And
but
that's what matters to me.
another thing though is that like, what if you have a lot of sites from a lot of different clients and you want to see all that data in one place?
Exactly, like a dashboard.
Yeah, and so that's another thing that we're working on internally is actually making the dashboard when you log into our site be able to see all your records from all of your properties in one place and filter them. And we think that's going to be a really cool thing for people who have a lot of clients.
That all sounds pretty cool to me. Now, one last question here before we wrap it up, and we'll get to Marcus's plugin picks of the week. The way that Stream 2.0 rolled out or was introduced to customers, in my opinion, hindsight's 2020, but I think there's definitely some things that could have been done differently, and I just want to hear from you. Looking back at it, do you wish you would have notified people ahead of time, or would have been much clearer to customers or users as to what the changes were that were coming, so that they would know, and instead of just one day seeing, hey, 2.0 is out, oh, now you have to connect to an outside service. It seemed like a big surprise. A lot of users to Stream were in shock when they did the upgrade.
Yeah, certainly. I think that there's probably some additional things we could have done. Even though we did have a beta that we ran for 3 weeks before we launched, that not very many people signed up for, but we did announce it and we did try to get people to sign up. And we do have Twitter followers. Sadly, not everyone who uses the plugin actually follows us on Twitter. I think part of the problem is that there's no way of knowing how many people are using this, and there's no efficient channel to communicate with them other than your changelog. And of course, we put it in the changelog. Hey, this is totally different. You got to connect. But not everybody reads the changelog.
And if they're reading the changelog, by then it's too late since the changes have already occurred.
No, you can actually hit view details before you ever.
Oh yeah, right.
Yeah. But very few people. I always do it, but very few people do it. They just update blindly. I think the only thing that we could have done probably different in hindsight that I wish we would have done is we should have rolled out like a 4.9.1, 1.4.91 update and put like a notice in the dashboard saying, hey, the next release. That's the only option we have as a plugin developer to communicate with all of our users, which I think is kind of lame. But that's the only thing we could have done, I think, to really tell everybody at once what we were doing. And you're right, it was a big change. And when you have a big change like that, maybe we should have gone the extra mile and done it that way.
And you brought up an interesting point, too, because you said there's a lot of people that follow you on Twitter, but there's a lot more people that actually use the plugin. So they may not have that communication channel, and that's a huge gap in WordPress, which is, yes, you list what the plugin site is, and oftentimes the developer will actually use the same URL that they used for the repository URL in that. But there should be some sort of a social icon or something like that I can get to that author within one click on Twitter if I've got questions.
I absolutely agree.
I mean, did you guys actually write like a, hey, look what's coming in Stream 2.0 post on like the Stream blog, on the product blog? Because if you would have, I bet that I would have seen that somewhere in my Twitter stream, and chances are I probably would have wrote about it because that was a big change. I mean, that's news, and that's really the only thing I could have suggested if it wasn't done already, is to just have a big blog post before it happens and say, look at everything we're going to do and we're going to change. And that way, I know you folks already had what you were doing, you had your mind set, but the dialogue could have happened before then, and you could have at least your blog post would have had all the explanations as to why you were going this direction, instead of everybody coming up with these questions almost in their mind when it was too late.
Even a video would have done a million miles for you.
Oh yeah, that would have been awesome to do a video.
Just say, hey, look, this is why we're making this change coming up. It's for this reason, and here's why. And I think that would have alleviated that. But I'm sure in the next versions you'll probably implement something like that.
I think there's definitely, you guys are right. I think there's definitely some lessons learned. I think that even though we did email pretty extensive explanation and announcement to all of our customers who were members of WPStream.com before the release happened. Actually, it was like almost a full 2 weeks before we did the release. But again, it's not everybody, and it's really hard to get like everybody the same information when really the only thing that ties them all together is the fact that they update the plugin. But yeah, right. I think you're right. There's a lot of hindsight things that we're definitely going to learn from. And I hope that other plugin developers are, listening so that they don't, make some of these same mistakes and they do things differently, because I think we can all learn from one another in that way.
Well, I mean, who knows? Let's say I wrote about it on the Tavern. You emailed all your customers 2 weeks prior. You come out with the video. You come out with the blog post. You have the beta testing period, and maybe the end result is the same. But at least you could say, hey, we did this, this, and this. We did all the channels. We did everything possible to let you know beforehand, and sort of use that as a crutch. But hindsight's 20/20.
Yeah, exactly.
So I just want to, before we let you go, is there anything special you could tell us that you're working on for maybe Stream 2.0 or 2.1, 2.0.1, or whatever you guys are working on?
Well, I'll say that we're really excited about what we can do with Elasticsearch. For those listening that don't know what it is, I really encourage you to go read about Elasticsearch. It's a really cool platform for searching, and really what I talked about earlier in the show about making data meaningful. I think that's really the road that we're headed down. So just be on the lookout for not only how being in the cloud with your data can help you see aggregated views of all of your activity from all of your things that you manage, but also making that data more than just a table. Tables are cool, filtering is cool, but what we really love at the end of the day is things that make our lives easier, and things that make our lives easier are things that tell us useful information in a very condensed way. And so that's the road that we're headed down, and we're pretty excited about it.
Fantastic. So that's, again, Frankie, just want to thank you very much for coming on the show. I know you've extensively participated in the chat within the comments of the WP Tavern post, and you graciously allowed me to publish an interview I had with you, pretty much addressing all of the concerns that I saw users bringing up within the comments. So that did a great job of sort of...
And you had great feedback, too, that we implemented that day.
Oh, yeah, because I went through and I said, because when I initially went through the review, I clicked on it, I connected, and it took me to your plans and pricing page, and I said, well, okay, this is weird, why am I here? And then I ended up in this endless loop, and it turns out that I had to click on the free button to establish an actual subscription to Stream before it would start showing me records.
That's right, yeah.
Which I guess you guys fixed.
We used your suggestion and just kind of made it more personalized with the instructions that showed your picture right there that,
All right, so I should see my name in the credit screen somewhere.
That's right.
Get a badge or a sticker.
Put it in the source code.
All right. Well, Frankie,
thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much for joining us on the show. And before we let you go, give us your Twitter handle, and where do you do your writing these days? Where can we keep tabs on you?
Yeah, so my Twitter handle is fjarret, first initial, last name, and I'm active most days. Some days I take a Twitter break, but you can definitely reach out to me there. Would love to talk to you about anything. And I do all my writing on frankiejarret.com, and it depends on how busy I am. It's kind of hit and miss, but I'm sure I'll be at WordCamp San Francisco, so I'll probably have lots to talk about when that's over. And I look forward to seeing you guys there too.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for joining us, Frankie. I greatly appreciate it. I thank Jeff for bringing on the show and bringing this plugin on my radar. It's something that I'm going to put on a number of my sites, just not only to track others, but also to track myself.
Great. Well, anytime, guys. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Thanks a lot, Frankie. Enjoy the rest of your evening, and I'll catch you out next weekend. WordCamp San Francisco.
That's right.
See you guys.
All right, Marcus. So, Joey, we did a whole show on a plugin. What do you say we get into 3 more plugins by giving us your picks of the week?
All right. First one up is called WC Vendors. It's a WooCommerce extension. And Jeff, it basically takes WooCommerce to another level, allowing multiple vendors to sell their goods. So you can set up one store, and then let's just say I set up the, used WordCamp shirt site, and you want to sell some of your used WordCamp shirts, and you can put your own store together, and I could offer you commissions right there on the store. So it's really cool, kind of a split use for WooCommerce that hasn't been out there before, and it's a free plugin, so you can check it out. WC Vendors is the name.
Okay.
Next one, we've got WordPress comment fields. Now, this is sort of an innovation. It allows admins to add custom fields to the comment area. Now, this includes like radio drop-downs, drag and drop, kind of field placement of these things. You can put radio buttons, other text things. So perhaps on my websites, I want to put, before, what's your name, what's your website, and what's your favorite plugin before I even want to know what your comment is. Maybe I can judge
that's
you that
interesting.
way.
That's the first time I've ever seen something like that.
Yeah, so you can totally play around with all of the fields within your comments. It's very easy to use. Totally easy to set everything up as far as the fields. You can drag them around. I had a lot of fun with it. It's called WordPress Comment Fields. And then finally, Jeff, this one, this is going to get you. This is one of those joke plugins that's hit the repository. It's called Comic Sans Roulette. And it randomly changes all the fonts on your WordPress site to Comic Sans. It has a 10% chance that all your fonts will be that way every page load.
10% chance.
That's right. So 1 out of every 10.
Jackpot.
That's right. If you hit the bullet in the chamber, everything's going to be Comic Sans. So this may be something fun for all you designers out there to put on your client sites if they're running late on their payments, perhaps, or see the reaction at your next design meeting. Just run a video and watch them freak out.
I'm making a note now. I'm adding to my list of April Fool's plugins I can use on the tavern.
That's right. I think I'm going to come out with that one maybe March 15th of next year. How about that? We'll do a whole show.
I'd like to be able to
punk your viewers.
Yeah, I like to be able to just monitor Twitter that day, April 1st, and see if anybody says, "Where's there Comic Sans on the Comic Sans being used on the tavern?"
Yeah.
And every
I'm
time
hoping for
different things are Comic Sans.
I'm hoping for Wingdings Roulette maybe next year.
Oh, Wingdings. That would be interesting. So that does it for Marcus's plugin picks of the week. And next week, we will be, amongst the news of the week, we're going to be doing a preview. We're going to give you the lowdown on everything WordCamp San Francisco. And, of course, Marcus and I will be in attendance. So we'll see what happens. Hopefully the venue doesn't explode from awesomeness. But that'll be interesting. And then the following week we'll give you, if it was a preview, we'll give you a review of,
That's right. Debriefing.
Of what happened at the event. And if we're maybe we'll get like 1 or 2 people on as guests that were also at WordCamp San Francisco, and we might have a little roundtable discussion about the event. I think that would be neat. So
yes, and I'm also going to bring my recorder, my audio recorder, so maybe we'll capture some people talking about the show, what they like about the show, what they hate about the show, and it'd be fun to listen to that.
WordPress Stories with Marcus Couch.
Yes.
It could be a sideshow. So that's going to do it for this week's edition of WordPress Weekly. You can find show notes for this episode and all previous episodes on WPTavern.com, and you can follow me on Twitter at Jeffro. That's JEFFR0. And Marcus, how about yourself?
Well, you can find me at my website, marcuscouch.com. Also, I want to mention I just redesigned the WordPress radio site at WPR.fm, so head on over there, check that out. The new stream is going to be coming after WordCamp starts. after that, after I get back from that, and it's got a lot of cool stuff, including on demand from the podcast world of WordPress.
Oh.
Pretty cool stuff. You can also follow me on Twitter at Marcus Couch.
Fantastico. Nope, not that software, just Fantastico.
No.
Until next week, everybody have a safe and enjoyable weekend, everyone.